Saltivation. Thanks for joining us today. You've got Meredith, Alex, and Tram here to talk about some of the updates to the retail delivery fees that we originally spoke about last year related to Colorado, and kind of using our crystal ball said, all right, if Colorado's going to do this, what's to prevent all of the other states from doing it?
And
we've got a couple more as of the day of recording. So I'm going to start with talking through just a couple, Colorado Senate Bill 23-143 that made a few modifications to our retail delivery fee that now there is a new business kind of exclusion or small business $500,000. So the Colorado 27-cent retail delivery fee doesn't kick in until you've exceeded that threshold. And also something that is a change is the original kind of rule was that the fee had to be charged to customers on an invoice. The department said, hey, we're not really going to enforce that. So if you want to eat that, not charge your customers, whatever, you don't have to. That is officially the position in the bill, is that it does not have to be separately stated on an invoice, which for some of our clients is a good answer, such that they make a couple deliveries into the state in a year. And it was going to cost too much to implement a system to do that. So that's a good kind of thing for some of those smaller delivery customers. And lastly, just a friendly reminder that the 27 cents goes up to 28 cents July 1. So those companies that are kind of doing it manually, you'll need to adjust your system accordingly. Otherwise, I would imagine, Vertex, Avalara, Shopify, the systems that are kind of auto calculating it will update their systems accordingly. So that's just a brief update on Colorado. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex, who has a not so brief kind of overview of what Minnesota's done.
It'll still be brief. Thanks, Mayor. So I think the snowball has been thrown into the hill, and it's starting to pick up a little bit of steam because we have a few states who have been talking about this, and we have Minnesota who has just enacted, and the governor just signed a transportation bill that has a retail delivery fee in it as well. Minnesota's fee is at 50 cents. And it does have a small business exclusion at $1 million, and it is on transactions for in-state delivery. So we're not sure what the mechanics are going to be behind this yet, because the Department of Revenue hasn't had its opportunity to provide any guidance yet. Again, this is as fresh as it gets. I think the signature is 2 days old on us. But there are a few exceptions in the language itself. It applies to the small seller exception, like I said. Also, if the underlying item is non-taxable, then the retail delivery fee won't apply. Similar to Colorado's new version, you don't have to pass this through to the customer. You can choose to eat it. But if you do pass it on, then you have to list it separately on the invoice as there's some sort of specific language. I can't remember. It's something about, you have to itemize the fee as related to transportation or infrastructure. There's some language that they suggest that should go on the invoice to specifically call it out. So one interesting note that I found in the bill, one interesting item is that when the fee is charged on the initial sale, if the item is ever returned, the fee is not refundable. So I thought that was kind of cruel and unusual. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see how this ends up playing out once the Department of Revenue has a chance to chime in. But yeah, Minnesota is now along for the ride. And I do want to point out that this is not a part of the sales tax scheme. This is a brand new mechanism, right? These retail delivery fees or retail delivery tax or whatever you want to, call it.
It's not a tax in Colorado.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was kind
right.
of using that language, being wishy-washy about it, because we'll see. There's
Right.
litigation on this issue. But this is a brand new mechanism that stands alone, right? And really, it uses separate forms. It uses a separate terminology, and really, its only joining of the existing sales tax mechanism is that it appears on the invoice where your sales tax would normally appear. So, so that in and of itself is kind of an interesting thing that I have in the past gotten on a soapbox about, but I will spare you all right now. Anyway,
maybe as it grows,
maybe
our
maybe
soapbox will get bigger.
We'll revisit it. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely growing.
We'll hit on that.
So I mean, the growth is happening up in New York with the state and the New York City introducing a new fee, or they call it the surcharge in New York City for online delivery, specifically to New York City, a 25-cent delivery surcharge. And then even at the state level, so different from Colorado and Minnesota, it's, state and the local, each trying to charge 25 cents per transaction. So it's a transaction-based fee or surcharge / tax. But I think the interesting thing is it's very similar, but also different in what they call it. I guess criteria. In New York State, it looks like it's just imposed on delivery of goods into the state that are, I guess they call it terminate. The transaction terminates in the state. So it's like they're targeting people who are consuming the goods in the state. And then the New York City bill looks like it is trying to impose the surcharge or fee on just online deliveries. So it's kind of a little different. So I think the challenge that right off the bat there is, the constitutional challenges with discriminating against the internet and e-commerce. So I think both, at the state and at the local level, there are things to flesh out. But I mean, I think on all the things that you both mentioned in terms of challenges, there are definitely challenges as these states and try to impose or generate revenue, and kind of that policy issue is a big deal, just because, good tax, if we want to call it a tax, good tax policy is easy to administer. And so this is brand new and they have no idea what they're doing and what this means for taxpayers. I think it does need to have kind of, a different look in terms of, hey, does this make sense for businesses? Does this make sense for state governments from a policy perspective? I believe there will be further debate as to kind of how that looks like as this trend continues. So
Yeah,
Who knows, right?
Policy is kind of the big overarching question. But our experience in Colorado has been mechanical, right? How to comply. Systems were not in place. It sounds silly, but in the background, in order to get another line item on an invoice that says delivery fee 27 cents, that's a big thing to do, right? To execute on that from a systems perspective. All these shopping carts that a lot of the e-commerce companies use in the background, the Shopifys and the Magendos and the big commerces of the world, there's many more. Those are just, to name a few, but they have to implement it on their end, the mechanisms to support this. So there's a lot of effort that goes on in the background for this silly thing, right? This 27 per invoice thing. Just work it into the sales tax. 4-letter word.
Right.
Anyway, okay. I promised I wasn't going to get on the soapbox.
Again, we'll save the soapbox for another day. Right. And I mean, as states roll more of these out, I'd like to see kind of that small business exemption be bigger, that certainly than 500,000. That's almost nothing. $1 million, when you really look at it, you can have $1 million in sales, but still have a super tiny margin, as a small business getting up and running. That, 5 million, 2.5, 2 million, anything seems more reasonable than certainly 500, but really having states who are going to implement this have some more like test data to understand the infrastructure required to put this into place, like really, really look at what your small business is, what those revenues are.
Yeah. We have excise taxes that kind of do this, don't we? Right? Those are on the business and typically not passed through, right? We have that as
correct. Well, and that's the argument, where should these local and state governments be, administering taxes that are already on the books and doing a better job of, making it easier for taxpayers to comply and easier for them to manage. So that would be the ideal situation. However, we're not in ideal. So we are dealing with the new and shiny penny, I guess, at the moment.
I mean, I live in Minnesota, so my vehicle's tires and suspension will thank your contributions. But
I think it's your own contributions.
Well,
but as our business listeners, thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just don't order your new tires online.
Right. But I was going to say that the interesting thing is, so in some of the legislative history here, I guess, for lack of a better term, this is supposed to be. The states saw a decline in revenue from the gas tax because during the pandemic there was less driving, and one of the things that they did in this transportation bill is they indexed the gas tax to inflation, which wasn't the case beforehand. So now they're going to be collecting more on the gas tax as a result of this indexing, and they're also layering on this delivery fee. So I'll be interested to see the metrics on how much this actually boosts the transportation budget, the earmarked dollars for this infrastructure. So anyway, just interesting thought that they're kind of almost double dipping into that same stream. But anyway, we do have pretty bad potholes.
lots of freezing water up there in your neck of the woods.
I'm sure New York has the same issues. That's why they're looking to
They do
pass a new fee or surcharge or whatever they want to call it. So,
all right. Well, thanks everyone for dropping in to listen to our little update on the delivery fees, and you can continue to follow us on Saltivation for more updates. Thanks all.
Thanks. Take care.